Okay, welcome to the July 30th meeting of the Pinardville Ad Hoc Committee. Let's go around the room and introduce ourselves since we don't have nameplates this time. Mike, let's start with you.
Mike Lawler, I'm with Goffstown Industrial.
What?
Mike Lawler, I'm with Goffstown Industrial Corp.
Carol Anderson, Community Representative.
Dick Amash, Community Representative.
Robert Schaefer, at-large member.
Andrew Cattert, I'm on the Goffstown Economic Development Council.
Rosemary Garrettson, community member.
Louise Donington, and I'm visiting from Manchester Planning.
John Heichel, I'm on the planning board, but I'm just one of the members of this committee.
Tony Martz.
And I'm Brian Rose. I'm the Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Okay. First up is approval of minutes, but since we don't have a quorum, we'll pass that by until we have another member show up. So, the next item on the agenda is the committee discussion of the final draft. And Brian, take it away.
Actually, I think with the 7 we are okay.
With 7 we do?
I think that's how we had done it last time, so yeah, I was thinking in my head.
Okay, then we will take up the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes from July 2.
Second.
Does anybody have any changes, corrections, amendments?
I do. I had
Yes.
I had left at 8 o'clock on that day. I didn't mention it in the minutes, so I don't know if that needs to be in there
Okay.
or not.
And I did find one piece that left me kind of confused. On page 2, down near the bottom where it says David Priest suggested Daniel Plummer Road could be added as a goal, and the economic development can occur with easy access to Route 114 under section on page 31. Huh? That sentence makes absolutely no sense, and I'm not sure, since it was a month ago, what the intent was.
I do. I brought
Okay.
up that there was an area that on one of the maps originally done by at the original meeting talked about an area that could be developed with commercial development up there, possibly, hopefully, higher level jobs, and that he was recommending that be put in the economic development section as a goal. It's worded weird here, but that's what that was about.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Cheryl.
It should say from economic development section. That's what I think it was supposed to be.
Okay.
So should we have it say David Priest suggested that your comment, Cheryl's comments regarding Daniel Plummer Road?
No, just add the word section after the word development.
Well, that also, add that one in, but also that clarify that it was regarding.
Yeah, because I know what it was about, yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else have any comments, changes, adds, deletes? In that case, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Looks like it's unanimous. All right, let's move on to the discussion of the plan.
Okay. So basically, and I apologize for all those who came out for a code discussion tonight. I know we had originally planned this night to be, kind of an unveiling of the smart code. It's really not quite ready yet. Derek and I have discussed it with the consultant, and we just felt it best to, get it to a point where it is ready to present to the committee and to the community, and not try to give you something that's, not there yet, or at least not close to there. We understand that it'll still be in draft form, and we hope you understand that when you get it, it'll still be in draft form, and there will be plenty of things to look at and to correct and make comments to. But we also felt that it was important because we're still not quite done fleshing out all the issues that have come up with, the Pinardville Community Plan. We feel like the first round of comments and revisions was really good. I think the committee got in and got down and dirty, and we were able to provide them a very good list of comments to make changes to the document. And, I mean, you have the revised document in front of you, and hopefully you've been able to peruse through it. I know I didn't get paper copies out to everyone, but hopefully you're able to either print it, or if you need a copy, I have a stack of them here available for other committee members.
Can we make those available to the public right now?
The only reason, well, I'm supposed to be charging $25 per copy for this, so, because it's paper copies and we have to pay for the paper copies.
And it's an
There's not
81,
enough for everybody anyway, I don't think.
right, and it's an 81-page document. It's not like it's only 3 or 4 pages.
I've told people that have come to the counter asking if they could get a copy, that, that's what it costs. And if somebody wants to pay $25, I would gladly give them a paper copy of it.
Okay.
But the version is available online, and it is available for viewing if you want to come to the town hall or whatever, if you can't afford to print it yourself or whatever. So I'll just leave it at that. But we have made the edits. We're ready to discuss what your feelings are on the revised plan, and we're hoping that by the time we get to the end of this 30-day review period, which we're about halfway through, I think, we're looking at, I think, the 17th or 18th of August as our last day of the 30-day review period. And so we're hoping that by then we will have received any and all comments that we need to be able to kind of come up with any possibly, hopefully small revisions at this point, because we've already vetted this whole thing once. But, staff is able to still make some adjustments to it based on what we hear and what is feasible enough to do. We're not obviously going to be able to make changes if they're not feasible to make, but we can discuss that tonight and hopefully get some good feedback as to how we can move forward and have a document that everybody feels comfortable, or at least the committee feels comfortable with recommending to the planning board as an approvable document. So,
Can I ask a question, Brian? Can you clarify that though this draft says final draft, it really means it's the final draft from the consultant? It's not the committee's final draft?
that's correct. I mean, we named it the final draft because, with our agreement with the consultant, they were hired to provide one full set of revisions to us, and anything that we want to change after that is on us.
Okay.
So, we're gonna stick to that, but we still want to at least
I just think that it's,
provide the opportunity to make some revisions if there are some concerns still.
it's confusing language, because it gives the impression that the committee has approved a final draft, which we haven't yet. We're still waiting for public input before we have a discussion on a final draft that we recommend to the planning board. Is that correct?
Well, that's why we sort of left the word in draft, because we still feel like
So that is correct.
that is, I mean, we're still considering it a draft and not the final document.
Okay.
And so,
So after the 17th
once-
of August, when the public comment time frame has elapsed, is when we can make a final document based on any additional changes that the public and/or the committee decide to make.
yes, and even then, it may still not be the final document, because if it gets to the planning board and the planning board says, well, we want you to change this, and, we'll approve it as a condition of approval if you change this, then, we'll make those changes as well, and then we'll have our very final document. So, Anyway,
So do we have Brian Wright on the computer?
Brian is, he's not on the computer, well, he's technically on the computer, but he's also on the phone. We're
But if-
doing a go-to meeting through him.
If we're not talking about the code, do we really need Brian for this meeting?
Well, I had asked him to be here just to kind of help field questions, and since he's been, integral part of creating the document, and I think he also needs to just be aware of what the committee's concerns are and try to be able to help respond to them, so.
John?
Chair, I have a question or just a comment. If, I've read this as the final draft. I understand that it's not the final draft. Could we, for future printings, so people could have copies of these, would it be possible to make these in black and white until we have a final, if we really want to make one color that's expensive at that cost?
Either way, I have to charge the same amount per copy, whether
The
it's
number
black
of
and white or
pages.
color. It's by page.
So black and white's the same color, price as color.
It's a number of pages. If it were 2 or 3 pages, there probably wouldn't be any charge because it'd be so minimal. But when it's 81 pages long, it's a hefty document, and the town has a policy regarding copies for residents.
And I'm actually, if it was by page, I'm not counting that it's a double-sided
Right.
page. So, if it was that many, then it'd even be more, which I don't feel is very fair to charge, but that's technically what I have as a fee for copies that the town provides. And I don't have a separate, for our zoning ordinance and for our master plan, we have separate specific fees for those. That's $20. This one, we calculated the number of pages and based it on the regular fees, and that's what we had to use.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Brian, let's get moving.
Okay, well, what I really kind of wanted to do was just give the committee most of the time here. I did want to just mention that, as we went through the document and made the changes, we tried to do as many changes as possible that had actually recommended a change to the document. If a comment came through saying, well, I don't like this paragraph, or I don't like, the way that this encroaches into someone's property, the drawings, for example, are not something we can really edit at this point. They were drawings that were created during the Planapalooza. They were conceptual, and they've always been conceptual. So trying to change the drawings at this point, we're not going to be able to do that because it is what it is.
The drawings do not reflect exactly what's going to happen.
No, not at all. The drawings were an idea that would hopefully kind of generate some future ideas and future planning about what could happen in a certain place. So, for example, I know a lot of people have been concerned that, the Cody's Corner, the
rotary traffic.
that's canceled till tomorrow. Yeah, it was changed to tomorrow.
Here?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I know a lot of people had concerns about the Cody's Corner and the green space that was sort of designed in front of the diner there, and that it took away all the parking, and that it wasn't going to be very viable for the restaurant there. Really, there is no requirement that be changed into a green space. That was an idea, and that can remain an idea that sits on the shelf forever. If people don't want to do it, they don't have to do it. If there's a viable way and the property owner's agreeable to doing something like that, and they think it would be good for their community, for their property and whatever, then, we'll start the discussions on, okay, how do we make this work? And if the town needs to be involved with it, then, we need to be involved. But first and foremost, this is any change that happens in Pinardville is going to be property owner initiated. We're not going to go and tell someone you have to do this on your property just because we've approved a plan that has a conceptual drawing in it that shows it that way. And I know I've been trying to kind of get that concept across, and one of the things we did do is we added, next to the maps, we added a caveat next to each one just saying, all the drawings in this plan are conceptual in nature, and, they're not to be considered, I'll read it. Let's see.
Page 45 is the first
So,
one.
yeah. All maps and illustrations drawn for the Pinardville Community Plan are conceptual illustrations only. They were drawn with the purpose of showing one possible development pattern. If any of these ideas are to be implemented, a cooperative effort will be required on the part of the town officials, the affected property owners, there it is, the owners, and the stakeholders and citizens of Goffstown to make it happen. This plan does not require anyone to move forward with any specific plan or development affecting their private property.
I thought that was good.
So, I mean, really, it's something that the consultants did as an illustration of how a possible concept of, development such as what a form-based code is trying to get you to do would or might look like. And there are probably 100 different versions of how it could look. This is their version of what they had come up with during the Planapalooza.
I was just going to add to that. I kept in mind some of those comments from the last one. There is a paragraph under introduction that talks about what is a Pinardville community plan. It's a good explanation, but at the end it says, however, this plan is not in and of itself a comprehensive master plan, which is a different document. And this is to spark ideas to move towards a master plan, but it's not a master plan. And a master plan would be...
It's not a master plan in and of itself.
Right, and
it's meant to be a portion of the master plan that feeds you into,
Zoning.
a
The
bigger,
smart code,
a
right?
bigger
Well,
picture.
master plan would actually be more definitive of what you're actually changing. This is only meant to be, again, conceptual, and
Right.
where a master plan says this is what the sidewalks will look like, this is what the streets will look like, this is where the streets should be, and things like that. So
Right.
I thought that was good, that I found that after looking back through it again, that at the beginning there was a good explanation of what the purpose of this is.
And I'd also just like to, I know a lot of people
Can I
have
speak to
been-
that issue first?
Yeah.
Because the plan really is intended to be a statutory master plan, which is different than a master plan for a development or for the whole area. A statutory master plan is really just a conceptual statement of principles, basically. That's really, this is intended to be a supplement to the existing town master plan, which also, the existing town master plan doesn't tell us where streets are going or what things are going to look like or anything like that. It just encourages us to do things like promote different types of transportation, different availability of housing stock, different types of commercial development, things like that.
The one I've seen for this area here is a little more definitive on street layouts and things like that. It's not illustrative like this is. It does show you the layouts and things like that, and where buildings can go and more.
You're talking
Right.
about for the village area.
The village plan.
Yeah,
I
the
don't know if there's
village,
a broader one you're maybe thinking of, but the one I've seen for here is what I had in mind when I was thinking of
Sure.
that.
the village plan, though, in and of itself is also a conceptual drawing, just like these are, because honestly, it still takes the property owners to be
Correct.
on board with doing something before we actually even could consider doing it. And then, even then, it would take further planning and, vetting of any other issues that are there to be able to do that. And that's actually a lesser of a master plan than this, I think, could be, because it doesn't come along with the language. That's a one-page
I'm
amendment to
speaking
the
more-
master plan with just a drawing.
Yeah, I'm talking more just the map. The way it's laid out is just seems more stronger, where this is more somewhat cartoony, I guess, in a sense, in the way it looks, and which softens its approach, where the other one for the village seems, yeah, a street could go there. You could make sense of it that way.
The other thing I just wanted to also point out too is, there's been a lot of concern, and I know the community members have voiced quite a bit of concern about this, and that's that this is going to add a bunch of apartment complexes to the Pinardville area. There are drawings in this. I go back to the question of the fact that this is conceptual. And these drawings, they show a square or a little building or something, and that shouldn't hopefully help have people jump to the conclusion that this is apartment complexes, and that this is going to be mass construction of apartment complexes all over town.
Well, Brian
That's-
Wright identified them as row houses. That's where he himself had said those were row houses in the
No,
beginning.
what
when I
he
asked him.
what he identified it as is a possible mixed-use building. And a mixed-use building could be a version of commercial. It could be mixed commercial businesses within there, all commercial. It could be mix of offices. It could be restaurants. It could be on the bottom floor you get some commercial, and on the top floor you get some residential. So to assume that this is going to be mass construction of apartments, I think is not a correct assumption, and that wouldn't be our goal to have apartment complexes be built in these locations either.
I would hope not, but it is a HUD grant. That's the other issue.
We are looking at ways of providing opportunities for different types of housing in Pinardville. That's what we're really trying to do. We're trying to make sure there are options for people other than a single-family house to live in, and those are options that should be made available. And in fact, are statutorily we are required to provide different options for housing in our neighborhoods. There's statutes out there for workforce housing and that kind of thing, that we are required to provide different types of opportunities for low and moderate income housing people.
Has Goffstown met that statute? Have they met that requirement, Goffstown itself?
Well, I don't know the actual number of what we have technically in Goffstown, but I would venture to guess that we are not there yet, and so.
So it is safe to be concerned that they could be trying to dump it all in Pinardville.
No, it's not. I would say,
No?
I mean, you're going to get an even spread of this type of housing, hopefully throughout the community. That's what the goal would be, is to
The community is the
spread
whole
that out
town of
through Goffstown altogether, not just Pinardville. And again, I mean, these are options that you try to provide and make available. And if we were to try to actually prohibit additional housing in Pinardville, we would be going against the fair housing law that the federal government has set up. We would be going against the workforce housing laws that the state has set up. And so I would very strongly suggest that we basically plan to at least provide options for people, because if we go in the other direction, we're going to be opening ourselves up to a possible lawsuit from, different governmental entities that have laws in place that would require us to do otherwise. So.
Hey, this is Brian. Can I jump in here real quick?
Sure.
One of the things to note is, I guess maybe a clarification of language. When we talk about apartment complexes as being a concern, is the idea that we're concerned about somebody renting a place to live, or are we talking about a large group of buildings of rental units that are scattered across the countryside with parking surrounding the buildings all over the place? What are we calling a apartment complex?
The latter.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you this much. We don't draw those. We, in fact, find that even if, and this is not the case, even if every single building that was drawn on this plan was intended to be an apartment, none of it is in the form of an apartment complex. All of it is pulled up to the street, buildings facing the street, parking sitting in the rear, et cetera, et cetera. Another thing to note is that there are quite a few new detached single-family houses shown as well. Not as many, because that is the predominant form of building currently in Pinardville. Therefore, to draw more of that seemed like we would just be adding to what you've already got that's working well. One thing to note is, while apartment complex keeps coming out and being said, is that what's drawn in these plans could just as easily be $1 million fee simple row house, or $1 million condominium unit, or a giant house, or anything. Fill in the blank. The point of these drawings is to show buildings pulled up to the street, buildings fitting into the context and the character of the existing neighborhood, showing a multitude of housing options for all the reasons that Brian just said, showing a multitude of commercial options as well. The other thing to note is that when you have a plan that shows as much development as we've shown in here, and this is like the long range plan, just because the market of there's not development pressure really currently in Pinardville, and so for this to be kind of built out in any way that just pops up all of a sudden would be a long shot at best to think about. So just to clarify, no apartment complexes are shown in this plan in any case, in any way. No apartment complex has ever been shown in any plan that my firm's ever drawn, in fact. Not that there are not rental units that could be contemplated in some of these buildings, but no apartment complexes in the conventional suburban concept that everyone doesn't seem to like.
Brian, the apartments that would conceptually be included, would they be 2-story, 3-story, 4-story?
Can I say, I don't know why we're talking about residential housing and apartments. This plan has nothing to do with the next step. It has a lot to do with it. But this plan makes it clear that we're trying to preserve and protect the existing residential neighborhoods and the types of housing that is available.
Excuse me, public, please.
And the types of housing that are available in Pinardville today. When we look at a zoning ordinance, we can then look at the details of, do you allow 100-unit apartment buildings or not? But that's not what we're talking about when we're looking at this plan.
I understand that, Tony, but
I think
the public, though, is, I'm sure that's one of the questions that they have. And that's why I wanted to get it up front and out of their minds, that this is not something that is currently being thought about, and when we get to the smart code portion, that's where we will actually be dealing with it, if we deal with it at all.
That's my point, Rosemary.
Yes, you guys are both correct. All of those things like building heights, et cetera, will be spelled out in the zoning and can be haggled over as much as you wish. kind of the thing to note though is that when you're looking at creating a place, remember a lot of this has to do with not just filling empty space. That's not really the point at all. The point is about creating a place, creating kind of economic vitality and development, and a place where people will want to come, and a center, and all of those things we heard about. To do that, the one thing that I would not recommend is suggesting that everything be one story. There's certainly a place for one story, especially again since you guys don't have lots of development pressure. But to kind of maximize the place-making potential and the vitality of the place, if you're going to put commercial, it tends to create the best place and work the best and have the most overall bang for your buck. If there's something going on above that commercial space, like the store owner living above, or like the condominium unit above, or an office above, but you'll be able to look at all of those metrics in the zoning ordinance when it comes out.
Rosemary, I'd like to also make it clear for all of us, including the public, that neither Mr. Wright nor the planning staff is telling us what we need to do. When it comes to an initial draft of a zoning ordinance, they're giving us a template for form-based zoning. They're not telling us what we need. That's our job as a committee to decide whether what is in an initial draft is appropriate for Goffstown and for Pinardville. It's our job as a committee.
Correct.
Okay? And people see some things like this initial plan that come through a process that goes through Mr. Wright and the staff. That's not the end point. That's only the beginning point. I think we've made significant changes to the plan the community plan that we're looking at this evening, and I'm certain we're going to make a lot of changes in whatever first draft of a form zoning code we take a look at as well.
I'd be surprised if we didn't.
Just to be clear, we had more than 350 comments to address in this in the draft document, the one you're looking at right now.
And for the public's edification, Brian, I'd like to point out that the connection for the 3 streets that people were concerned about is no longer there. And that the comment that these were proposed new streets that has been changed to possible new streets, so that it's a little softer kind of way to interpret the plan.
Yes.
Well, it's not just a softer way to interpret it, it's the reality of the plan. Okay? The plan is not making anyone do anything, and it's not forcing any type of agenda.
That's right. And proposed means it's going to happen. Possible says maybe.
We ready to go on to other comments?
Like from the community you're
Go
talking
to
about?
another topic on it?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay. Last time we made the comments, I talked about Mass Road, and I kind of looked at this new draft with that focus in mind. There's a lot of good language about what we can do on Mass Road. One is in the land use area. The initial part of that really talked about the potential for the Mass Road itself. The transportation section also got into the walking, biking, public transit, and other forms of transportation are encouraged, which would be mostly along Mass Road. And then the transportation goals, talked about developing a pedestrian plan for Pinardville and things like that. And then actually in the appendix, when we talked about adding the definitions, I thought that area was great. And then we have the complete street, which really has a good description. One thing that I think really would be helpful is the streetscape, street profile. There's been questions about how do you fit all that into Mass Road, and maybe under the transportation section a little more pictorial development of what that could look like, what Mass Road would look like. There was discussion about dealing with the center lane, How do you put a bike path on there? How do you have trees along there and not lose your parking? How do you increase maybe increase some parking? So a way we could get a little bit more illustrative of the potential for Mass Road, which I think was a lot of the focus of this, is how to improve Mass Road. And with that is probably the initial part of a lot of the changes could happen along Mass Road and make those improvements. And so therefore, it would be helpful, I think, to have a little more description in terms of pictures or drawings of that nature to help explain what could happen on that street.
I do know, and I'm going to maybe ask Brian to speak to this too a little bit, but I do know that the smart code is going to have some of those elements to it. It's when you get down to kind of designing, and having street profiles and that kind of thing, that's more of a technical type of a document that belongs more in a code versus in a master plan. I tried going back to look at our other master plans that have been done in Goffstown, and I didn't see any of them that had information that got down to the street profile level and trying to get down to the details of how the design of a road would be. That in my mind is something that's much more belonging in a regulation type of a document than in a.
I'm not necessarily saying designing it, I'm saying more examples of what it can do.
Yeah.
Not necessarily designing it.
And
it's going to be in the zoning ordinance. It's already in there. And we actually have 3D models of it built, so it's very clear. And it shows even like if an existing road, if there were to be improvements made to that, what that might look like. Those sorts of things, or if a new development was coming in to put in a new road, how that road would need to look, and so it's all in there. But our charge in this to do the master plan portion of it was to be at a much higher level, kind of talking about the concepts rather than the details. But we wanted to make sure that it got in there, in the next stage because it is important. But even that, as you all can see, the right-of-way is variable along the entire length of Mass Road, and so to make any improvements, there's no one-size-fits-all, of course, and as you go through it, you'll have to, if you want to implement some of the changes that are shown in those thoroughfare sections in the zoning ordinance, and that's on a case-by-case basis, where whatever portion of Mass Road you're looking at. But it's a good point for sure. We want to make sure we get all that in there, at least in the interface.
Because we have some overlap, why can't we take a couple of those pictures and insert them, as Rob suggests, perhaps as another appendix, indicating essentially what the scale of different streetscape designs would look like, so that you could show, as Rob suggests, that within whatever it is, a 50 or a 60 or a 30-foot right-of-way, you can fit this type of component. That's what you're looking for, right, Rob?
Basically, yeah.
Especially.
Well, I guess my concern is that typically in a document like this, staying at that conceptual level, once you put in that level of technical detail, it really changes the entire discussion and becomes much more about, well, I think that bike lane should be on both sides instead of one side, or it should be not so wide, or it should be on the other side of the parking, and all of a sudden it really just kind of opens up the dialogue to a whole nother level that you tend to begin to get bogged down on. And I guess my thought is if it's addressed in one place, that's why.
You've got copies of those pictures?
If you're running into that possibility of kind of taking things to a different level of context.
Not necessarily pushing for the technical drawings. It's more example.
No.
Maybe other streets that have been done in a similar way, or.
You have a draft from him?
Well, that's one thing to note too, Brian. I don't know if you want to talk about this, but the examples and the photographs and things that were requested. Do you want to kind of give a little bit of a synopsis on that, Brian?
Say again?
you want to talk a little bit about the request for photographs as it kind of ties into that, or examples of things?
Well, I mean, the photographs that everybody's asking for, it also was kind of a concern that had been brought up and that we were talking about, you know, should it or shouldn't it be in this document? And the end-all discussion was that photographs in this document end up getting, I guess, kind of interpreted in a manner that is, again, too specific. So if you put in a photograph that has pictures of a brick building in it, then people automatically kind of jump to a conclusion that, well, the pictures are showing that this is supposed to be a brick community, and, you know, this is, you know, the type of style of buildings that we're trying to incorporate here, and that's not exactly what we're looking at. And so, and also to avoid different opinions on what types of buildings should or shouldn't go there, the idea was to leave it more in the conceptual version of it. And these drawings are actually, I think, the closest conceptual version of how you would be able to come up with that go in this. And so I know Brian had concerns about, okay, well, what if I put pictures in there that the community members or the committee doesn't like? You know, are we going to just be going back and forth between, you know, the committee and me as to what pictures I should be putting in here? Also, he's told me that the code should have some pictures of when you get down to a certain type of development that goes in a certain zoning district. You know, there will be some pictures with that, but you know, to get them into this document, we both kind of agreed that it didn't make sense.
I know this is conceptual and it's not going to happen, except like you said, maybe way down the road. But the town spent a lot of money to make that third lane on Mass Road because the traffic was horrendous, and that helps the traffic flow. People want to make a turn. Now, if you take away that center road and put a bike trail in there, you're going back to the problem with all the traffic.
And again, those are design issues that we have to kind of work through, and basically, you know, there's different options of how you could maybe implement it, but
you only got so much land.
I don't know.
You can only do so much with what you got.
And that would have to be done in conjunction with a lot of work with the Department of Public Works to try to come up with some type of design that actually works. So
Basically what you guys would do, and this is where over in Yarmouth, Maine, we worked on an area there, and they want to move forward some proposals we've made, very conceptual proposals on a certain road there. And so what they've now done is hired an engineering firm and us as a team member to come back. They've actually done surveys of the roads. They didn't have properly surveyed information, so it was not even possible to know how much land you have available to do anything with. And so the entire length of the road, or the portion of the road that they're wanting to make changes to, has just been surveyed. And now there's actual engineers involved, and they are working with us to make sure that everything fits exactly as it should, that they're not causing traffic problems and all of those kind of things. So what happens is it's like a whole nother level, a whole nother step. So that this document says, yes, it's great. You want to balance out your transportation modes, bicycle, pedestrians, vehicles, and transit if possible. And that's the conception. And then you move forward. The zoning shows you, here's some ways you can do that. And then the final stage will be it becomes an actual public works project. One of the other reasons why we didn't want to get too specific in this document is we wanted to focus more on what was happening on the private property, because I know we've heard once we heard it once, we heard it 1,000 times. There's an extreme sensitivity to public expenditures to make improvements, and so obviously making improvements to Mass Road would be on the taxpayers' dime, and so we felt like kind of being sensitive to that reason.
Tony?
I really want to get to the public comments here so that we can actually deal with some issues that people have been raising. I've got a question for Mr. Wright. Have you sent up a preliminary, at least an initial draft of a smart code to the staff?
Yeah, we sent a document the other day for them to look at.
Let me ask this question too. Does it include the type of streetscape that Rob Schaefer was talking about?
With bicycle lanes, et cetera?
Yeah.
Yes, it has that in there.
Okay. I'm very concerned that we're not getting some of the information and materials that we've been asking for. Pictures, streetscapes, and I have a real concern that there's an editing process that's going on before it gets to the committee. The reality is, in my view, it's the committee should be doing the editing process.
I agree.
Not Mr. Wright, not the staff. So I frankly
Okay.
would like, can I finish, Brian? I would like to see those materials, and I frankly don't think we can move forward very far with this draft until we see those materials, so that we are better off spending our time listening to the public and trying to understand what their concerns are so they can be incorporated into this community plan.
I agree.
You want me to address that?
All right, so, go ahead.
I'll address it. I did receive a draft of the code, and when I looked at it and I shared it with Derek, who also works here at the town, we looked at it, and there were some issues that we had, and right off the bat, that there were section references that were incorrect. There were issues with the way that the approval process went, and it didn't really jive with the way that it happens in the town or in New Hampshire, per se. And so we wanted that to be initially worked through before it comes to the committee, because we didn't want things to be confusing and for the committee to have to do a review of something that didn't make sense with section references that were basically, referring you to something that either wasn't there or the section number was wrong or whatever. And so we took a very quick look at it and found multiple issues that we didn't feel like it was ready to be given to the committee, and for you to waste your time on reviewing something that you'd be confused with. And so what our plan is to take a few extra days and give it an initial cursory, let's fix a couple things that need to be fixed, and then plug it to the committee when it's ready to be there. And I don't feel like that's any kind of, I'm not trying to be like backdoor, do something without you guys. I'm just trying to make sure that when you do get it, you're able to understand it.
Brian, I think
It's a difficult document to understand to begin with.
I know it's a difficult document to understand, but if you were to put out the original document, what they said, and then put a sub-sheet into it, we changed this because of this, we changed this because of that, then everybody would understand what was sent and why you changed it.
You're talking about administrative issues. You're not talking about substantive issues, Brian. Okay, we need to.
Absolutely, that was my point. It's really, the things that he's talking about are like the process by which someone would submit a plan. And you guys have and New Hampshire in particular has some specific ways to deal with that, and we wanted to make sure we had that right. So anybody who is interested in that, and granted that may only be a few people that actually care about that portion of the ordinance, know what's in there. The other thing were simply just errors that we had embedded in the document, where it literally said, to see this, refer to section 18.1.2.a.q.c. whatever, and we had a mistake. And so, as a courtesy to you guys, so you're not wondering what is in the world. I spent 5 hours trying to read this thing and I couldn't find that reference. They asked us to make some of those revisions. There was nothing substantive that they asked us to revise. No building heights, no setbacks, none of that. And in fact, with this document, the master plan document that you guys have all been reviewing, they send it out to you all as soon as we send it to them, which I don't know what's traditional in Pinardville. We've never had that happen before. That's completely for this very reason. When a draft document goes out, no matter how good you are, there are some things that the local staff kind of has their pulse on. And it's not a matter of editing, it's a matter of making it where it's not confusing for anybody who's agreed to take the time to review it and be part of a committee or the public. And so we were surprised when they did that, but apparently it's what is expected in Goffstown, and that's okay.
So when can we expect to see the draft?
Well, our goal is to get it to you by Monday. So,
This coming Monday?
Can we see this evening the pictures on the streetscapes that Rob has been asking for?
again, I don't have that. At least I don't have it on this computer. I'd have to go and download it and bring it down, and it's honestly a street profile that's got cars and trees, and we all know what a street profile looks like.
It doesn't even have to be specific to Mass Road. It could be.
It's not specific to Mass Road.
That's the point. That it's what I'm concerned about is that I know what the potential is because I look at these things and I see them a lot. I don't know if other people can see the potential when how it all fit, in that kind of conversation. Well, if you show a picture where it has fit, and you can make your opinions of it, but at least you can see some potential there. And that's all I'm trying to do is the pictures show you the potential, just as the other diagrams and drawings here show the potential. They're not necessarily saying what will happen or what is exactly going to happen. It's showing you the potential in the same way I'm saying for the street itself, which is what a lot of us have been talking about. What is the potential for Mass Road? Here, these are some ideas of what you can do. This house, a pedestrian path, a bike path, parking, and a street all fit together on a street. Whether it's exactly going to fit on this case, I'm not sure, but at least we can show that, this is how it works, and this is the potential. That's all I was trying to
Is there
get at.
possibility of getting something of that sort to us in the next couple of days?
Well, again, if we're going to give it to you on Monday, then, you're going to have that. You're going to have all those drawings. It'll be in there.
Brian Rose, we vote on August 20th as to whether to give this onto the planning board. Am I correct in reading that?
That's right.
So shouldn't we not already have seen at least a draft of the smart code before then?
Well, that we were
Kinda
actually
go
trying
together.
to keep them a little bit more separated because of this. We didn't want them to be so overlapping. You'll end up seeing it before we go to the 20th because you're going to get it hopefully next Monday. But
we're not going to be coming together to discuss it, are we?
well, that was going to be another topic of discussion that I might bring up.
He says groaning inside.
We're looking at having you come for one additional meeting between now and then so that Brian can do a walkthrough of the code so that you're not coming to the 20th
Blind.
That's what I was concerned with, not having, able to put it
Not
together.
having an idea.
Yeah, we need to be able to put the two together in some way, at least ourselves. Because they do go together, one's the foundation for the other, so I would like to somehow understand myself exactly how it all meshes.
And I personally have no problem having another meeting prior to the 20th. As a matter of fact, I would welcome it.
Yeah.
So that I can have an understanding and a walkthrough of what the smart code looks like before the 20th when I have to vote on it.
Exactly.
Well, again, you're not going to be voting on the smart code at that point in time. You're going to be voting to recommend the plan. And then later on, after we've gone through
But
all
like
the
Cheryl
comment
says,
versions and
one
everything.
relies on the other. And so I'd like to be able to see the smart code and have had
To an extent.
some opportunity to discuss it before we give our final blessing to the plan.
say something? As we've talked about different things and what the purpose of this plan is in the beginning, it's a document that basically shares goals. It's really who we are in Pinardville, what are the kind of things we like, which way do we think we want to go, and if this is accepted, then that feeds into how you create the built environment from the goals and the objectives that are set out in here. Now, I don't know if these people haven't seen the document. I don't know if they need to have a review of what's in this document right now.
That's currently what we're in the middle of, is the 30-day review period where it's available to the public, and it's on our website, it's on, people can download it and get it, or they can come and get a copy of it or whatever.
Well, should we be talking about this plan now and then see how it'll work into a design guideline? Because when, let's say, a developer comes into town, or when people are actually creating change, they come and read these documents, see what the people are like, see what the town is like, come and talk to the planners about it, and then they take the zoning guide and give it to the engineers and say, okay, this is kind of what we want, make it work according to this. And then you have all the design guideline stuff in that document.
Right.
But maybe we should talk about the goals in here.
I think the biggest part of what we're trying to do is get through this plan portion of it, get it to a point where the committee can accept it, and then jump into the code discussion. It's a lot to go through. The code is going to be, for many of you who haven't dealt with codes and all that stuff before, it'll be somewhat difficult to get through. Even for me, myself, it'll be a difficult document to really get through and make sure I understand exactly everything that's in there. But
it's not every day that anybody, even the city planner, sits down and reads the zoning ordinance from scratch. So it's always like that. But one thing I'll say is that what's in the zoning ordinance doesn't change your feelings. I mean, I've not seen it change anyone's feelings before about the concepts that are in this document. If they're true, they're true. If they are what you guys want to see, they are what you want to see. And then how the zoning document manifests that is up for discussion to make it comply with this document.
Well, we just want to see it, that's all.
Sure.
Rosemary, if members of the committee don't have specific additional comments on the draft, I would suggest we take some public comments so we can discuss public comment and determine if we have more revisions to make.
Does anybody?
Well, can we first
Very
set
short,
another
specific
meeting?
one. It's real quick. It's just on page 56, just formatting. Just the column widths. Everywhere else you have them all matched up. On that one, you have a wide one and a narrow one. Just from a formatting point of view, it's more of a... That's it.
I need that too, just to get it in. To get everything on one side. is what I'm
Brian,
saying.
did you note that? Because I don't.
yeah, I just noted it.
Compare it to the others, you'll see the point. That's all.
Does any other committee member have a comment or question before we open it up to the public?
Can we just remind the committee when we do,
Yes,
the community that, take 3 minutes?
yes. Please, we're opening it up to the public for your comments and your questions. Remember, you have 3 minutes to speak. You need to give us your name and your address. And I will now open it up. Who's first?
And please, if someone has already made the comment, let's try to not repeat comments that have already been said.
Hi, my name is Gady Benner. I live on 12 Joffrey Street, and I will be definitely taking more than 3 minutes because I'm going to be speaking for over 100 people this evening, okay? I'm speaking for them, so I'm asking for a little bit more time, please. And I think I'm deserving of this because I've lived in Pinardville for 30 years.
I move that Mrs. Benner be given additional time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, I will do my best to get this out as clearly as possible. I'm not articulate, and I'm not a good speaker like Attorney Marks is, okay? It's very difficult for me to be here tonight, okay, because I'm nervous and I'm not good in front of people. But I am fighting for my home, all right? This is where I've lived for 30 years, and I do not want to be taxed out of my home. And this has just been very nerve-wracking since May, you know, when my husband and I came to this planned Pinardville meeting and we saw little marks and our streets were going to be unblocked, okay? And this was not explained to us, okay? We had to ask because we seen these little marks on our street. Well, what is this going to happen, you know? What's going to happen, all right? You know, am I going to be backing up in my driveway and potentially hit someone because we're going to have a lot of traffic? That makes me nervous, and that makes me very sad. It's not fair to be treated this way. And as Rosemary said on the July 2nd meeting, okay, she said that a meeting like this is not a place for me to speak, and I want to dispute this. And this, you're on film saying this, okay? I have the right to speak. And a town meeting is where a person should speak, not at a encounter at the grocery store, Rosemary, okay, like you said, because right now we're being filmed, okay, and I would like my comments to be on public record and whatever documents are submitted tonight to be on public record as per words and everybody's words. So if someone comes out and calls us belly achers or whatever, I would like that to be put on public record also, like they have not been in the past. Okay. First of all, before I go through all this list of comments and papers I have, I want to just say, does it make sense to pay $50,000 for a plan that's just supposed to be an idea? This is our master plan. You know, most people, it takes them maybe a year to earn $50,000. It's a lot of money. So it should be the plan that we go by, and it will be, because if decisions if decisions are to be made upon this plan, it needs to be accurate. Okay, it cannot be just an illusion or just a potential piece of paper. It's our master plan. So I don't buy that, first of all. And as of the 7-2 meeting, we were gone on vacation, so we could not come. But we did view it, okay, on GTV. And this committee doesn't seem to have the power to change anything, okay? It's just emotion that you folks seem to be going through, because there was a lot of comments and good ideas that came up. Okay, for instance, I believe the principal, Mr. Bousquet, is he here this evening? No. Okay, but he came up with a concern about the school, but he was just passed over. Oh, okay, all right, just pass him over, okay? He was concerned that the town was going to be taking over a business building, which is right next to the school on Mass Road, closing down all these business. It's a true concern. But hey, you know, that didn't matter. We're just moving on, okay? And also, I believe there were some other comments regarding, well, this gentleman this evening, he spoke about the, I'm not sure what your name is.
Gamache.
Okay, Mr. Gamache, you made a very good comment about the roads and the turning lanes. Okay? And that should be included in our plan. That makes sense. It's a lot more important to have a turning lane than a bicycle lane at this point. It helps with traffic. Again, I think you were passed over this evening. And that doesn't make sense, because you should be in a position to make decisions, and you should be speaking out for us. But it doesn't seem like you're allowed to do that. Okay? And then another one, another idea that comes to mind is that conceptual ideas become reality, okay? If they're giving you a piece of paper saying it could happen, it will happen, because you have this paper that you can go by, all right? And right now, okay, don't let them fool you, because there's 35 acres already on the market on the corner of Mass Road and Daniel Plummer. And there's a listing that says that it's ready to be subdivided. Well, the pictures show apartment complexes. Again, don't let them fool you. Those are what they are, okay? Because apartments right now are very valuable. Housing is very valuable. Manchester is overburdened with housing, and they need our land so they can ship over their people, okay? Okay, so that's what they want, okay? So the big buildings are apartment complexes, and the buildings have already started to be built, because there's a big 224 apartment going up in back of in back of Shaw's and Moose Club, okay? And that was built against people's wishes. It's a done deal, okay? I've asked for it to be halted, but they can't because it's already been signed on, all right? But the people on Moose Club were not notified, only the abutters. And it's the abutters, okay, some of them that still own land that sells, okay, the abutters get notified, not all the people on the street. And some abutters have sold the land and made a lot of profit on this, so, you know, they weren't speaking up too loudly about this. But how about the other poor people on the street? One or two abutters makes money, and then 100 people on the street have to suffer for this apartment building? That doesn't make sense. It's not fair. That's why we're fighting. If something is going to be going up in your neighborhood or on your street, there should be notification on the public sign. So when you go by, for instance, at Bartlett School, if something is happening on Joffrey Street, they should say planning board meeting regarding Joffrey Street. That way we know. We have the right to know. And things that concern us, even though it's not our land, it concerns us because we're going to suffer in the future. If something goes up and it costs the town millions of dollars, guess who's going to be paying it? It's the taxpayers. So we need to know about this. And we need to be able to be taken into considerations when things like this go on. Okay? And another thing, too, okay, if we get into this HUD paperwork, okay, which the plan has begun, okay, then we will be required to have a minimum of low-income housing and all that. The plan makes you do this. But I believe if you don't go with this HUD plan, you're not obliged to make a minimum amount of low-income or apartment complexes. I've looked into the paperwork. We don't have it now. I haven't seen any new laws, okay? I would like to see where this is in writing. If we don't go with this plan, we're going to be forced to build apartment buildings. I don't think that's correct, okay? I think it's correct that if you get into this paperwork, you're going to have to build tons of low-income housing and apartment complexes, and that's going to make us go bankrupt. Okay, now I'm going to start my prepared speech tonight, okay? This was on the comments that I heard, okay? I'm going to read something that we wrote up. Is Plan Pinardville good for the residents of our community, or is it good for only the few that will profit from this implementation? By just reviewing the plan, you can see apartment complexes everywhere, and that is correct. There is. Okay, don't let them fool you that they're not. Okay, and again, there's 35 acres adjacent to the ice house right now that's up for sale, Mass Road, Daniel Plummer Road. Okay, so we could be realistic. All these things happening. Okay, it's on the market. They're waiting for the zoning to change so they can get hooked into the storage. And that's going to cost us a lot of money if that happens because the town's going to have to pay that. But it's going to be valuable. And just can imagine how many apartment buildings you can fit on that lot. All right? So that's why we have to be notified and we have to watch these large parcels because we're going to go bankrupt if all these things go through. We just heard today that Shaw's is going to be going out of business. That's sad. You know, there's going to be a lot of people losing their jobs. But it's going to make that property worth a lot more if they can build a whole bunch of apartment complexes in the parking lot. Just think of that. But who's going to pay the taxes? It's us. Okay? The smart code zoning in the form of overlay zoning will not protect our single-family homes, but it's going to encourage the building of more apartment complexes, possibly government-affiliated. The new zoning will allow pretty much anything to be built anywhere in Pinardville. And these are facts I'm presenting you, and I can prove these facts, okay, because we can look them up in the computer. I have printouts. Per Goffstown.com, it costs $10,590 to educate one child. The U.S. Census states that a family with children tend to have two. Thus, a 48-apartment building that is similar to the one that's being constructed on Moose Club can actually bring in 96 students. Using the numbers previously referenced, a 48 complex can produce $1 million just in educational costs alone. Mr. Martz says my figures are not right. He does not have a crystal ball. He cannot guarantee that a big complex like that, 48 apartments, will bring in only 12 kids. That is not correct. He says guarantees. He says will not. I said possibly. Okay, we cannot gamble Pinardville's money. We're not going to the casino here, and if you do, okay, the odds are against you to begin with. So don't let him make you believe that, because you can come up with all the calculations and stuff, and what is here today may not be here tomorrow, and you cannot compare demographics from Goffstown single-family homes to other things, okay? So anyhow, there is a possibility, because most families do have 2 kids. And actually, in one bedroom, you can fit 2 sets of bunk beds, so you can even have 4 kids in one bedroom, all right? And the fact is that apartment complex bring in less taxes than single-family home, okay? We looked this up on Goffstown.com also. Okay, a regular apartment building, and I believe there's some, I have some facts here, by the library, there's a couple of big buildings, and I don't believe they're government affiliated, and they bring in about $1,017. And the more luxury apartments could bring in about $1,500. A government affiliated complex can bring in even half of these amounts because they get special rates on assessments. So essentially, we would be lucky on these property taxes if we just got enough money for these students' books. Okay, another fact, apartment complexes increases demands on town's resources, agencies, police, and fire department. Well, of course they do, because the more people you have, the more crime you may have, the more fires you're going to have. Okay, so population comes with increases of town resources. So again, don't let anybody fool you that it will not. And I didn't write this article, and I believe the Goffstown Today did. Okay, Westchester County, a New York County, is currently regretting that they've ever accepted a HUD grant, because the article is writing that now they took this HUD money, HUD is forcing them to meet the definition of fair housing by demanding them to build 10,768 affordable homes. And it's going to cost them $700 million to $1 billion, and that's probably just for the buildings. That's not for the school. Wait till they get the kids in there. It's going to even cost them more. Okay? Now, we have Neighborhood Works posted an article on July 16th. Londonderry took money, okay, for this HUD money. And now the building has begun. They're already forced to build 95 units of workforce housing. And this plan that they got was made by the same people that made our plan. I think they're called TPUDC. Okay, they just got approved 6 months ago for this plan, and already the articles are coming. The building has become. You know, we don't have any money. We were reading articles, okay, in the Goffstown Today, in the Goffstown News. Our schools, they need like over $14 million of repairs. The kids are learning out of portable schools in the parking lot. We lost Dumbarton, and just because we lost about maybe 150 kids from Dumbarton doesn't mean we can fill them, you know, with, I mean, one apartment building is going to fill the void that we're receiving from Dumbarton, but not the money, because they were good paying customers. Okay, so it just doesn't make sense to compound our problems, all right? And who's going to profit from all this, all right? I listened to Gerard at Large this morning, and it seems that maybe even on this board there's going to be people profiting if this goes through. And maybe that's why they're pushing it. Who usually pushes for deals like this to go through, and who usually makes money? It's usually real estate brokers, okay, landlords that own a lot of land, okay, architects, attorneys, and affiliated parties, okay? Do we have anybody that's in this kind of type of business on the board? Would you raise your hand if you're an attorney that specializes perhaps in real estate development on this board or committee? Mr. Martz, aren't you an attorney that specializes in deals like this? Okay, so if this goes through, will you be making any money? Mr. Schaefer, are you an architect? Which one is Mr. Schaefer? Okay, are you an architect that specializes in lead architects? Okay, which is this type of development? Okay, we have a gentleman that works for St. A's.
Excuse me.
We're,
Gaten, you're not on topic anymore.
you're,
Yeah,
you're picking characters of this board.
Okay, I'm stating facts. I'm stating facts, okay? Okay, also, we have a gentleman that works for St. Anselm's on the board, okay? They own a lot of land. If you Google St. Anselm's, okay, you will see pages of properties that they own, okay? And we have different names coming up, too, that have been going to a lot of meetings, okay? We have the director of Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission that keeps coming to these meetings, okay? We have, we have people from New Hampshire Housing Finance that's on this committee also. We have another realtor that's on this committee. I won't keep mentioning the names because it seems to be upsetting. But anyhow, I mean, we're not being represented, the homeowners, okay? But other people are, okay, which is very, very upsetting. And if you do look, okay, on who's on the committee, and you Google your names, you'll understand what I'm trying to say, and you'll see what positions they are. Okay. When I was looking at Plan Pinardville, I was looking on page 13 and 14. It shows many residents of Goffstown participating in this plan project, Pinardville project. But realistically, they seem like they're the ones that were creating the plan, but this is just an illusion because I've spoken to a lot of people that participated in this, and none of them asked for the apartment complexes, work housing, or government-affiliated housing. None of them. They didn't put this in the plan. So where did this come from? It came from the people that made the plan, the people from Tennessee, okay? And according to the feedback that we heard in the Union Leader on July 15th of Pinardville, it says, okay, workforce housing, government-affiliated, mixed and overlay zoning cannot be removed from this plan because removing from this plan would not be feasible either for economic or demographic reasons. That's what it said in the paper, that they couldn't change any other things in the plan because it's part of the plan. So in other words, why? Okay, because this is a HUD requirement. Okay, if you go with this plan, you can't change some of the stuff, I mean, I'm all for nice shrubbery, maybe flowers, on Main Street or Mass Road. That's nice. Okay, maybe going green, creating maybe gardens, and going with energy, green energy. These are all things that should be in the plan, but it doesn't seem like they are. It's these darn apartment complexes everywhere because it's part of the HUD agreement. It's just very upsetting. I can go on and on. I probably will give other people a chance to speak. Oh, before I do, okay, I should probably mention the HUD agreement is online, all right? And I don't know. I don't remember the town being asked if they could go into this agreement, but there's an agreement that says, I can't read it, the 9th day of August, 2012, okay, by and in between the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority and Goffstown, okay? You have to be, I think, an attorney to understand this. There's a stack of papers, but anyhow, I did find a couple of things. On page 13, okay, it says that during performance of the grant, disagreements may arise between the grantee and the grant officer. Okay, the grant officer, I believe, is HUD. And it says, if a dispute concerning a question of fact arises, the grant officer shall prepare a final decision. So in other words, okay, if we go with this plan, we have no say anymore. HUD is going to rule, all right? And then, okay, on page 17 of this agreement, okay, it says, if you enter this agreement, the grantee represents, warrants, and certifies to HUD that it shall administer its grant in a manner that affirmatively furthers fair housing, and that a minimum it shall carry out all actions to affirmatively. I have a hard time saying some of these words. Okay, as I said, I'm not articulate, but anyhow, basically it says you get into this housing agreement, you have to keep building fair housing until HUD tells you to stop. So how many houses is it going to be? I don't know. And this is the information that we got from Goffstown today. Westchester County accepted the community planning grant money and is now in its battle for its life. Based upon the grant agreement, HUD is now trying to force the county to meet HUD's definition of fair housing by demanding Westchester County that they change all their zoning, just like us, okay, in every town and build 10,768 affordable homes at a cost of Westchester County taxpayer of $700 million to $1 billion, okay? And this is the information I believe I just gave you about the workforce housing, okay, that Londonderry needs to build, okay? The building already has begun, 95 units.
You've already stated that.
Okay, but I have my paper here, okay? Sometimes I forget and I have to take notes,
Well,
okay?
you keep
Okay?
repeating
Okay,
yourself, so
all right, okay,
let's-
all right, I'm
let's
going
move
on.
along.
Okay, I'm moving it along, I'm coming to the end, Rosemary, okay? Okay, also, let's see, Newport just took some money to renew apartments, okay? They took $500,000 from HUD. Okay, now part of the agreement means that they have to continue affordable rents for its residents for a minimum of 20 years. Well, that's a long time for $500,000. $500,000 doesn't seem much for a big, for a town, but 20 years of commitment does. And we already have articles that came out in the Goffstown paper, okay, about the portable classes, the $14.5 million, okay. Also over here, there's information regarding the handbook for sustainable developments, okay, that was, okay, it's listed in the DES New Hampshire Government Information, density zoning, okay. Well, the government can put liens on your property. That's what it says, basically. And they can, the ability of government to regulate and limit the extent of density of development on property for a valid public purpose. That was one of the paragraphs that it got into. And also it says the ordinances establish a development transfer overlay district, which serves as the receiving area of the density transfer ordinance. So that's a dumping area. So that would be Pinardville. They mentioned that. And additionally, there's a lot of information I'm not 100% informed about, but it doesn't sound very good at all. On page 138, it says, additionally, the agency can retain a first right of refusal through deed restrictions. So anyhow, if you get into this type of program and the government is affiliated with it or another agency, they can put a lien on your property and have the right to purchase it and guarantee its affordability. And liens can be put on your property for 30 years, okay? And also, there's a lot of information regarding a program that has to do with smart code that these folks haven't told you about. And I think it's called Get Set, Get Ready, Go, something to that effect. And maybe we can have them speak a little bit about that. And it's about posting property, okay, worldwide, so the world can see it, and maybe sell the property that belongs to Goffstown landowners to China even. And that way China can come over and put anything they want on that. And this is through, I believe, an organization that Mr. Martz belongs to, a Metro, Metro. I don't have the particular name, but maybe he can tell us a little bit about that. There's many states that have refused plans like this, okay? State of Washington, okay, there's a House bill that passed, okay, House Bill 1165, okay, and it prohibits the state of Washington and its political subdivision from adopting and developing environmental and developmental policies, okay, that would infringe or restrict private property rights, okay? So this has to do with a plan like that. They passed a bill against this. State of Dakota also passed a bill against this, okay? And also the state of Mexico. Okay, and that's what I wanted to say tonight. Thank you. Anybody want to sign my petition now? That hasn't signed it against Pinardville, okay?
Does anybody else?
I believe Brian's trying to respond.
Yeah, if I don't respond now, I'll not be able to because that was quite a long list of things that need responses. So if you guys would be so kind as to let me, I'd appreciate it.
Go ahead.
All right. So to clarify a few things, one, to restate, the streets are not connected any longer. The master plan does not reflect streets being connected that were once proposed or shown as possible connections. It's not an option and it's not on the table. We have heard your concerns and responded in kind, and I'm not sure how else to respond to it besides taking it off, which we did. I'll say that the concern about the school taking business that's adjacent to it, or the city taking the businesses and putting them down, one thing you'll notice, aside from the fact that it says this is all conceptual and has only the chance of inspiration, there's a second alternative in the Pinardville comments that shows businesses still located on that site. So rest assured that that is not an inevitable future. I'll say again, as I said before, there are no apartment complexes shown in this master plan. I heard, Katie, you say several times, don't let them fool you. I'm not sure who them is, but I think by them you mean me. And so I really take exception with that, because to me, that's saying is I'm lying. When I say that, I don't lie. I have no interest in making apartments in Pinardville. It doesn't benefit me in any way. There are no apartment complexes shown in this master plan, for the record. You guys already have housing standards that require certain amounts of affordability standards to be met, as Brian was stating before. This plan does not require any of those. It's simply talking about balancing housing. One of the things that's been mentioned several times is the notification, people not being properly notified, etc. This plan has nothing to do with notification. That's a good point and a valid point, something for the town to consider, but it's not relevant to the master plan discussion, except for insofar as people want to be increasingly notified about the goings-on of this proceeding, but that would be a town issue, not related to the master plan. One thing that I would say is that the concern that Shaw's is going out of business, there are many reasons why businesses go out of, are no longer able to operate. One of them, with the grocery store, has a lot to do with the number of rooftops and the number of shoppers that are there. So your concerns about bringing more people in may have a negative impact on the viability of your commercial businesses down the road, but that's a side note. If you guys are debating the numbers and the statistics, I heard you say that, a person on the committee has an objection to the numbers that you're quoting. I would suggest that you guys get an actual economist and do a study, because Goffstown.com and Goffstown Today, those aren't sources where you can actually get facts and figures that you want to use to base future decisions on. They don't have to fact check. They don't have to be accurate. They can say what they want and put them on the internet. So I would just suggest that the committee or the town consider possibly engaging an actual economist to sort out some of these things. The Westchester, New York issue that was brought up was specifically that in 2009, Westchester, it's my understanding from something I read on the internet that may or may not be true, that they actually entered into an agreement for some fair housing that they were, after they entered into it, they actually then were not in compliance with the agreement that they had made. Therefore, when they went to ask for additional money from HUD, and they were found to be not in compliance, HUD was looking at withdrawing the granting that they were given. So it was entirely the fault of Westchester for not complying with the 2009 agreement that they had made. The Londonderry plan that was mentioned is a master plan that my firm worked on with the community. It was unanimously adopted by the planning board with only a few dissenters in the public, and by a few I mean like two. The master plan is a comprehensive plan so that it is high level. They made no zoning changes thus far as a result of this. No zoning change was requested and granted based on the master plan that we wrote for that project specifically. So the master plan had nothing to do with that apartment development that came in.
Brian, was that Brian? Brian, was that HUD fund? Was that HUD funded or not?
That was a HUD, yes.
The master plan?
I can't remember.
From Londonderry, I don't believe.
Remember if it was or not. Yeah, I think you're right, Brian. Thank you. We've worked on several, but I think that was one that they just self-funded. They spent the $125,000 themselves.
That's right.
And there was no zoning being done for that. It was simply just the master plan for that amount of money. There was a concern about, again, kind of calling into question people's ethics, about LEED buildings being proposed in the plan. I would wager to say that with the demographics and the numbers that you guys have there, the likelihood of you getting a LEED certified building in any of these things that we drew would be a hope, a wish at best, but not likely viable. But some places are determined to do it, and they can, so they may have one or two. I would think that while the personal interests of people on the committee may be represented, that's also the reason why citizens come out, and their own personal interests are represented in, for instance, the connection of the road. Each of you guys who had a concern about that, it was your own personal interest that you cared about, whether or not it had traffic impacts, negative consequences, et cetera, wasn't a concern because that was kind of a greater good thing. It was really about the street, and that's human nature. That's okay for people to have an interest of their own in mind. And then I guess my last question is, out of all of that well-researched, and I applaud your tenacity and the time you must have put into spelling all that out and laying it out and connecting all those dots, I'm still looking for an actual objection in the plan, some specific recommendation. Like you can actually say, I'd like for you to change these words in the plan. And that's so super helpful, above and beyond just laying out a conspiracy. So if you have specific concerns that you would like to have changed, then please make those noted so that they can be assessed by the committee, so we can know specifically what's going on here. That was the end of my list of responses. I may have missed a few, I'm sorry, but that was a long presentation.
Thank you, Brian. Is there anybody else from the audience who wishes to speak?
Can I make a comment?
Just a moment, yes, Tony?
I've been trying to figure out why the comments keep coming back to apartments and multifamily housing. And I understand that people in Pinardville are very concerned with what has already been approved by the planning board, something we have no control over unless we adopt different zoning that better protects the neighborhoods in Pinardville. The reality is that this plan only mentions apartments once. On page 46, it talks about the fact that Pinardville, there are few housing options besides detached single-family house and conventional condominiums and apartments. It says that as a means of recognizing the fact that there's a problem in Pinardville because there are conventional condominiums and apartments, and if anything, the proposals that this is looking toward would be to stop conventional condominiums and apartments. Multifamily is only mentioned twice in the plan as it's currently drafted, and that's on page 27 and page 31. Where it says the same thing in both spots. It says study the feasibility and justify decreasing parking requirements and increasing shared parking for multifamily, mixed use, and non-residential properties, which of course is really an attempt to limit and better control traffic situations. The reality is that this committee has made it clear, irrespective of what people's initial reaction was to the initial draft of this plan, which did not come from the committee, but the committee has made it clear in the common vision on page 18 that Pinardville residents, and that means us as a committee drafting this report, are committed to protecting existing neighborhoods. It also says on page 21, where we talk about the guiding principles, we've made it clear that our goal is to remove barriers to quality development while protecting property rights, preserving the affordability of housing, and maintaining safe neighborhood cores. We have in many places here, made it clear that Pinardville provides affordable housing and safe, child-friendly neighborhoods. That's the housing stock we're looking to protect here. That same concept goes forward on page 27 and page 33 of the plan as drafted. Specifically stating the goal of preserving and protecting the residential neighborhoods that abut Mast Road and in areas such as Moose Club Park and Rockland where affordable and safe residential alternatives are available and need to be maintained. So anyone who has the sense that the goal or the agenda of this plan is more apartments has it exactly wrong. It's 180 degrees apart from that. And it's very frustrating that concept doesn't come through as I think it should come through.
Well, then, wouldn't it help us to have a copy of the zoning along with this?
We're talking about setting
That
the
would show it.
goals that we then look at the zoning. If we can agree here that our goal is to protect these neighborhoods, when we look at the zoning, we're going to focus on this
That's
goal.
what I'm saying, it would show that then.
Yeah, we can't, unfortunately, we can't do it all at once.
Yeah.
By statute, you need to have a master plan before you have a zoning ordinance. And the reality is that those things, to some extent, are being brought together, and they will be, but our work isn't even half completed yet when we approve this plan, because we really need to focus on a zoning ordinance. And what we're telling the public today, and what we've consistently told them, that our goal as a group is to preserve and protect the residential neighborhoods.
Which we'll continue to do when we start working on the code.
Right.
Okay. Just tack on to the end of that. What can happen if you don't have a plan is you don't preserve the neighborhood. You don't preserve what we have. So by putting together a plan, it's the emphasis of what everybody would like to have for the community. If the zoning ordinance continues to get layers and layers and layers on it, it becomes a non-effective document that then creates a free-for-all. You have property owners doing what they would like to do because they can find holes in the code or find areas of the code that appeal to what they'd like to do. If you have a more cohesive, smart code that reflects what the community would like, then everybody involved can then turn to that plan and say, no, you cannot do that, and this is what we would like you to do because this is what we've all agreed to do. And we are getting pretty close to that concerning area where the zoning ordinance becomes somewhat ineffective. So
We can stop this process, and we can stop the discussion on smart code. And the reality is that then the residents of Pinardville will have to live with the ordinance that's there. The ordinance that brings them the apartment buildings they see in Manchester, the apartment projects they see at Shaw's and Moose Club Park, the car washes that they're facing on Mast Road. Our goal is to control, if not completely eliminate those things. And that's, I have some degree of frustration as a result.
Point of order, Madam Chair. May I make a point of order?
Yes, sir.
This is really unprecedented. I'm Representative John Bird, Bay Street. This is really unprecedented to have open comment and to have somebody, a gentleman from Tennessee, respond to an open comment for, I think it was 18 minutes. And then to have the board to go back and forth and ignore the public comment when we're in the public comment session. So you'll have to close, I believe, you'll have to close the public comment in order to continue the way you guys are doing.
I was about to go back to the public, Mr. Burt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that.
Mr. Benner, I think you were next.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dana Benner, live on 12 Joffrey Street, and I'm one of those people that call us Harris at the selectmen meeting called the Bellyacher, which he referred to all the people in Pinardville who expressed a concern as Bellyacres, and that's on tape too. But I'm gonna be a little bit briefer than my wife, and you can all sigh of relief on that one. Let's call it what it is. HUD's involved. Housing Urban Development. That is subsidized housing. That is workforce housing. HUD, you don't want to get involved with. I did, the lady down here from Manchester, what was your name, I'm sorry?
Louise Donington.
Okay, Louise, I took kind of offense to your comments, basically assimilating that people of Pinardville needed this whole thing explained to us again, that we're not quite bright enough to catch it. Unfortunately, the people I've spoken to in Pinardville, and I've spoken to a lot of them, are very smart people and see this for what it is. It is basically a setup that we're going to regret down the road. We are opening ourselves up to government control, period. Goffstown and Pinardville in particular can make these decisions to Pinardville on our own. We don't need government money. We do not need the government telling us what we need to do, when we need to do it, and how we're going to do it. Every town, every neighborhood has changes to be made. No place is perfect. But let us make the decisions to change it. There's very few people on this committee from Pinardville. We get a lot of outside looking in, but not from Pinardville. Pinardville decisions should be made by Pinardville residents with the help of the rest of the neighborhoods that make up Goffstown. This is our community, our neighborhood, and what happens here is our responsibility, not somebody else's. You know, we've gone through this too many times. We've come to every meeting. We've been lambasted. It's fine. Water off a duck. People can call me every name in the book they want. I really don't care at this point in time. This is my home. I do have we have a petition. We've sent petitions around about every aspect of this. And I'd like to read at least this one here, and I'd like to have all these comments put into the record, you know, and I want to turn these petitions into the board, if I may, as official documents, and I won't charge you $25 for the copy. Even though it did come off my printer, and it did cost me money to print it, I won't pass that on to the town. Okay. We have a petition signed by 63 people, petition that requests that no changes be made to our current zoning as was proposed in the planned Pinardville project, and that zoning changes be taken off the list of proposals. I want to bring that up again in that smart code, that whole smart code thing. The zoning is why a lot of us are here. That zoning, that smart code was supposed to be here, it was supposed to have been discussed, and it was supposed to be done. Everybody puts a time limit. We have to have this in, your comments in by this date. This comment has to be done by that date. You have to make a decision by that date. Oh, but we need a few more days. Nobody else gets the few more days. It's cop it up and make it here. If you can't go by your own rules, where are we going with this? Okay, disallow the building of any more apartment complexes in Goffstown. Take that apartment, anything to do with apartment complexes, subsidized housing, right off the list. What Pinardville needs is commercial business right now. We need businesses that are going to bring in money, not expend money. We need more businesses. We've got plenty of open spots. Shaw's now is fully open. Put more businesses in there, not this track housing, buildings, whatever the word terminology is. Get more businesses in here. Restaurants, where the plan states that we are a prime location, very close to the Manchester airport, very close to getting on the highway to get to Boston, very close to going over to the seacoast, very close to going into the mountains. Well, dang it, put some bread and breakfasts in here. Put some restaurants in here. Make people come to us and spend money. Don't bring people in here that are going to cost us money. We want money in, not money going out. And when money comes in, then we can have the money to fund the repairing of the Bartlett School. We can fix roads. We can open up parking spaces. We can do all these things. That some of these things are within this plan do make sense. But we just don't need the feds or the state telling us what to do and when to do it. I mean, geez, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. Yet, it seems to be going around in circles. This petition also petitions to always be advised in writing. That's already been addressed. And it's been signed by 63 people, which I will present to the board for your perusal. We have another one that says, say no to Planned Pinardville, no apartment complexes, basically no zoning changes. It basically says the exact same thing. Yeah, and these other ones have too. There's been a lot of comments coming in. Thank you, Brian, for keeping us on that email list. We're receiving everything that we're supposed to be receiving. I want to publicly thank Mr. Heichel for defending my right to write an editorial, because unfortunately I was not here for the July 2nd meeting, where at the end of the meeting it was brought up that about my letter to the editor, which is my right to do. Mr. Heichel stepped up and defended my right to do that. What disappointed me is somebody, who's the person that was knew a lot about Las Vegas or Los Angeles type of, probably not here. Anyway, he made the statement that my letter was slanderous. It wasn't slander. Didn't slander anybody. It's on tape. You guys can feel free to watch it anytime you want. It's on GTV. But, Mr. Martz, you wrote a rebuttal letter, which I did like the letter. It was a good letter. But you also stated that you were going to sign the letter, because there were not enough people on the committee here to take a vote to say that it would be represented as a letter from the Planned Pinardville Ad Hoc Committee. There weren't enough people to take the vote. So you asked the other members to sign the letter and be submitted with their signatures. There was at least 3 people on this board that didn't refuse to sign it. When I see the letter appear, which I was eagerly awaiting, it was signed not by you, sir, but by the Planned Pinardville Ad Hoc Committee. Now, if there wasn't enough people to take a vote, how could it be a letter representing the Planned Pinardville Ad Hoc Committee, which fully states that you misrepresented yourself as the Planned Pinardville Ad Hoc Committee? The letter was good. It was to the point. I enjoyed, I read it. I took all the points out of it that were, they're very good. And I read it very well. But what disappointed me was your signature was not added, though it states right on camera that you were going to be the one signing it. It was a letter from you simply because there weren't enough people on the board. That disappointed me very much. It's kind of scary that, one, we can't live up to timetables that you folks, you guys are the ones who set them as far as the smart code thing. Smart code does go hand in hand with this. I don't care what you say. You can't separate the two, because you can't have one without the other. And also, I'm very disappointed in the fact that we had a misrepresentation of the committee, and I think that's a shame. That's a travesty. Thank you.
Who else would like to speak?
Hello, I'm Mrs. Cody from Cody's Corner. We've been written up in all the papers over and over, but nobody seems to ask us what we think about this. So I'd like to tell you. I'd like you to look at page 61. Cody's Diner is on the corner of Pinard Street and Mast Road. It's been a business here for 46 years. We think helping the community for all that time. What you have done is successfully close us off with this plan. You took away our land on the left-hand side and made a great big bunch of trees. Next to it, by the way, behind it actually, is our home, which is a completely separate property, a different deed. and you've blocked off our frontage there, so we don't anymore have a front yard. Then you've taken the backyard and put a little parking lot in it. Now, the road on the side, on the right-hand side, is our driveway. You have made a road down there and put it into our backyard, a separate property, and Mr. Rose has gone on record time and time again saying we're not taking anything from everybody. This has taken everything from us. It has taken our livelihood and our home. I'd just like to know how you can say that to me face to face and say you've taken nothing from us.
As was brought up before, I'm not really supposed to respond, I don't think,
Correct.
and I don't know.
We have asked you privately and got no answer as well. I'd like that on record as well. We have asked more than once. I mean, I know we're not the only people. I see this road going behind other people's yards, but personally, I think we're, I mean, a little outrageous here. This is completely infeasible. We have no intention of giving up everything to Goffstown. And unless you want to buy it, this is completely infeasible. And I'd like to say also, we are for sale, and this has completely destroyed our chances of selling this property. Nobody wants to buy it with this plan out there on the internet. Nobody. That's all I have to say. Although I would like to know when the public is going to get to see the smart code. Yeah. That has not been said once here. You might get to see it Monday. When will we get to see it?
After the comments are not allowed anymore. That's when. Comments end August 17th.
Thank you.
Donna?
Donna Pinard, 65 Riverview Park Road, lifelong resident of Goffstown. Same street all my life. I'm already on record as being against this plan. I just want to put that out on the table to be fair. I do want to talk specifically, Mr. Gamache had mentioned a comment about the fact that the town has already spent a good deal of money putting in the middle lane so that we have 3 lanes so that people can take lefts. When I came to the Planapalooza events and all the meetings, and I came to them all except the initial one where pictures were taken of people around tables so that I could earn my golden ticket so that I could complain if I wanted to, hopefully without being called names, though I might get myself a silver aluminum hat. I bought a bicycle. My husband and I just recently, going to get into that, and I'm a fat girl. And I've driven my bicycle down Mast Road, and I did not feel any fear. I did not feel unsafe. I've walked Mast Road. I walked from my daughter's house, who lives behind the car wash in that neighborhood over there, and I've walked all the way to Big Lots and back, and I didn't feel unsafe at all. I like Pinardville the way it is. I don't necessarily want it to change, other than to make zoning as easy as possible for businesses to come in. So when we talk in the smart code about let's have a certain facade that we want on buildings that will fit with Pinardville, that's all fine and good, but if that deters the business from coming in to do business because they don't want to put the extra money in to put the facade that we're going to put in the code, then I don't want that in the code. I don't want the code. I like it the way it is. Let's go with the zoning laws that we've had. Let's go with the planning board and the zoning committee that we have. I don't think the sky is falling and that we need to, tomorrow all the apartment buildings will come up unless we get a code that keeps it all safe. I don't think that's going to happen. I took my bicycle on vacation and I drove down the streets in Maine and I was scared to death. Pinardville does not have a problem. Please stop saying the sky is falling and we need to change it. I understand the selectmen took this grant because they felt like we have the Mast Road project and Pinardville always feels left out. Okay, we formed the committee, we've talked about it, we've got the ideas now, they're all conceptual. I also am a little offended by the fact that I understand zoning can be difficult, but I'm not stupid. And as a teacher, I teach my students that if you want to know something you don't know, you research it, give it to me. I'll find people who know what I don't know, and I'll ask them questions. But don't give it to me at the last minute with a deadline that I have to all of a sudden go and find my people to interpret what I want interpreted so I can then understand it. I'm not stupid. Just give it to me, and I'll find whoever I need to find to explain what I don't understand. It's not unsafe. Pinardville is fine. We don't want it. For those who are on the committee that are already gung-ho and sold, that's fine. For those of you that may be swayed not to recommend this to the planning board, then I ask you to please take into account the fact that the people who take the time to come and sit here and give up their time do not want it. Thank you.
Mr. Burt?
I'll pick the big chair.
Okay. State your name again, please.
It's Representative John Burt, and thank you, Madam Chair, and fine committee members for allowing me to speak tonight. I do, according to the census, I do represent about 3,757 people as a state rep, and a tremendous amount of people have called me. I have just never received so many calls on a subject so concerning to citizens, and they are asking me to put in legislation which is allowed in September to try to stop some of this stuff, like other states have done. And I am currently looking at that. So if I may have just an extra minute, I'd appreciate that, Madam Chair. Nick Capisano, Selectman Capisano, said it really good one time. The town was going to try to raise the speed limit, or lower the speed limit, have one speed limit throughout the town. And, I know I'm not going to quote him exactly, but I would like to try. There was about 35, 37 people that showed up that night. And he is absolutely right. He said to get people to come out, and this many people, because a lot of people are scared to come and talk to the government. And bottom line, you guys are government. They are just scared to come here. So to get that many people, as well as this many people behind us, he said they would make sure they took that under consideration. And they did. They killed the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. They listened to the people. And that is what true government should do. Also with Brian down in Tennessee, I call him Brian, Tennessee, to talk about Goffstown Today or today.com and other online news media as possible untrustworthy. If I can point out one thing, and he says he'd never lie. I'm sure the guy's a nice guy. I mean, I met him. He is a nice guy. I'm sure he has his heart in the right spot. But he lives in Tennessee. We live in Pinardville, Goffstown, New Hampshire. There's a big difference here. So when he says that, the government, basically he says the government would never lie. Well, if I could point out, do you think HUD will tell the truth? There's been Godsey, the IRS spying on Republicans and many other groups, the AP press. They listen to our cell phones. Snowden, they want to hang him. I think he's a hero. There's Fast and Furious, where we're giving the cartel guns to bring back and kill our own people. To be honest, I have very little trust, and I think the people behind me and a lot of other people that are scared to come in here don't trust the government very much. So again, that's another issue. And Brian, I do want to thank you. I really think Brian has done a great job, and I want to commend him for that, because whenever he says a word or he says something that really is factual, it's true. And, he's doing a good job. One time he said crime. Well, I can't remember the board member, but, they stroked out. They said, oh, my God, don't say that word. They'll turn people away. We can't say crime. Well, this plan will bring new crime. The other one is the smart vote. How can you vote on something if you haven't even seen it? I mean, you might as well go down to Washington and vote for Obamacare, because that's what they did. They just passed it along. They never even read the damn thing. And now we're doing it here on a local level. That's very concerning. And on page 71, I was just looking through the paper real quick. It says row housing, sustainable design, mixed use development. That's on another page. I mean, that's all, it just smacks of it. And a big one that I really want to point out is a lot of people that called me said this. Why is the government, the federal government, and a gentleman from Tennessee up here pushing their agenda when we can do every bit of it locally? Every bit of it can be done right on the planning board and zoning. They do it every week. They make variances, and they say, yeah, you can do this, or no, we can't. And on the workforce housing, you made a comment that, Brian, that possibly, we haven't met our quota with the feds in the state, because there is workforce housing laws. I believe I saw a paper last year that Goffstown has met that. And I will go home and try to find that paper, because I remember seeing something that if we didn't, we are that close from meeting it. So we don't need extra. And I was wondering if the rest of Goffstown, Terrell Hill or wherever, if they could support some of that. We can put a 47-unit apartment building right up on top of that hill. We can put it around town if we're forced to do it. Bottom line, I say if we are forced and it comes from the feds, I'd tell them to kiss off and tell them that we'll take the 10th Amendment and we'll secede from the nation, which I think we should look into that with the federal mandates that we have and that they're trying to force down onto us. And then also, this is my last, is Brian said, Tennessee said, give us an example. Give us something to work with that you want. And I said, oh, I got it right here on my list. You probably know that I'm against this. If you want me to even look at it, put this in the plan. Put in that there'll be zero eminent domain. Because that's what's going to happen, like Cody's Diner. In order to get that road behind their house and other roads and other apartments, if that's what you guys go to, the only way you're going to do it is eminent domain. Remember Connecticut. Down in Connecticut, they took a lot of houses for a mall. Oh, creates more taxes. The Supreme Court, my God, upheld it. I'm going, are you serious? But they did. So they tore all these houses down. Not one brick has been laid for that mall. But all those people were forced out, and they were paid fair market value. That's it. So if you want to add that in there, and also add in there that no committee member will gain one nickel from this.
Right.
Yeah.
And also add in there that Goffstown, the village, will share. If we're forced to take one workforce housing, Goffstown, the village, gets the next one. And again, we come back to, we can do all of this on our own. We don't need the federal government button in. I just can't say that enough. And they also said, not that I'm totally against the rails to trail, but when they first started that, they said, this isn't going to cost any money. Well, now it's costing us tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if we had the actual numbers. And again, I just want to come back to the word eminent domain. The only way this is going to work is eminent domain. And for anybody on this board that says, oh, come on, we'll never, ever do that, then put it in writing that eminent domain will never be used. Because it will. Because how are you going to get that new road right up through Mass Road Grain? There's a new road. I don't know why you want to go up through there, but you're going to. I'm pretty sure those boys up there, they aren't going to give up that land. Well, the only way you're going to get it is eminent domain. That's where you're going to get a lot of this stuff. Pizza Hut? I like going to Pizza Hut. Well, according to the map, it possibly could be disappearing. Put in this fancy, whatever it is, the apartments with the businesses, alleged businesses on the bottom. But once you build it, you can put apartments down on the bottom once it's a done deal. See, that's the problem, is once this is in. And then I see a road through McDonald's. I don't know where you guys are going to put McDonald's. Again, you're interrupting a lot of private businesses. And according to your maps, it is housing that you're putting in. So you can say it's not, but it is. And again, I come back to that word, eminent domain. That's the only way you're going to do it. And I am totally against any of that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm not sure I want to speak. Some of you know me. Others you won't want to know me. My name is Alan Yates. I've been in town for a while. I was almost on this committee until I undertook another project, which is to raise 2 teenage boys and give them what time they needed. But, be that it may, I won't tell you what I do for a living, and I won't tell you what I've done for the town over the past 10 years, or 38 years, whichever way you want to look at it. But one item in this whole report revolves around transportation. And if I'm going to say something, I'm going to offer a solution. And if you look at the existing use of the transportation right now in the Pinardville area, and what's the real reality of future use? If any of these solutions require increased ridership, increased number of people, increase anything, where are they coming from? They're going to come from housing. Because one of the conclusions here is that people are going to walk, ride, and whatever. I think you're dreaming. People still love their car. My wife was born and brought up in Pinardville, and I'll hear about it when I get home. But that's the reality of it. So this plan that you would like to promote has to have a reasonable sense of reality, and it doesn't. There are some aspects of this, I'll call it a report, that do have a sense of reality. But the things that you've heard tonight are housing, and I'll go to the Fair Housing Act. Done a little research, had a little involvement with it, had a little involvement with the town. This town meets the Fair Housing Act without doing one other thing about housing, period. Workforce housing is a term given to, I'll call it cliche, to get housing projects approved. It's workforce housing. It's housing. It's housing for maybe when we were younger. I lived in an apartment before I was married. Didn't have much money. Didn't have anything. Didn't have a wife and kids. Got all that now. So things change. Those people have got to live someplace. And those are the people that you're going to train to live in a Pinardville that changes it for the future. It's not me. I'm too old to do that. You know. Turning lanes. I love this one. Someone proposed putting a bike path in the middle of Mass Road. You have got to be kidding me. I'm riding my bike and I want to make a left turn to go over to McDonald's. What am I doing? I'm praying that the guy behind me doesn't hit me when I cross in front of him, because he's going that way and I'm making a left turn going into McDonald's. You've got to be kidding me. The sidewalks, I mean, I see people ride, I see people walk. When was the last time somebody was hit on a bicycle on Mass Road by a car?
1978.
Okay? So you talk about safety. If you're doing things for safety, if you're doing things for appearance, that's another thing. What does Mass Road lack? What have we done in the last 15 years on Mass Road? What has this town done? Anything that's in the right-of-way that's grows green has been cut down. It needs to look better. What can the town do to make it look better to attract business? Because if you can make it look better, it's going to be of more value. Okay? Think about that one. Another comment I heard was a notification of projects. Now, that's always been a problem. You can notify anything, like for the planning board, who comes? The immediate butters, the proposer, maybe some backup information, engineers and whatever. But the great majority of the people don't come here. So how can you better inform them about what's going on in their own neighborhood? That needs to be written into this program. How do we better inform if this goes ahead? How do we keep the people in these neighborhoods informed of what's going on? Better than we do now. And that needs to be written in here. Now, so streetscape. Now, think about opportunities on Mass Road. Drive up and down Mass Road. Now, I'm an observant kind of person, so I see a lot of things, and I try to remember a lot of things. But can anybody in this board remember what portion of Mass Road doesn't have a turn lane in it? There's your answer. Nobody knows. It's between Pinard's workshop and the Chinese restaurant. Whatever it is. The place I won't go in because it looks like a dump. Okay? And I have no problem. There are problem properties on Mass Road. Design a way so that the property owners are encouraged to do something better. And I don't see that here. What encouragement is there for somebody to do something better than what's there now? Now, somebody said, let's encourage, create something that, so we have more commercial needs, meaning how can we make this look better to appeal to commercial enterprises? Well, it depends on what you're trying to attract. You're certainly not going to get the big stores because they come and go. But you're going to look for people and businesses that you and I might use on a regular basis. We go to the pharmacy, they have Rite Aid. So it's got to be something that people go to more often, because the button specialist or the stamp store, or unless they're specialty, they're going to have to draw from a much larger area. How do you attract stores and commercial enterprises that service a vast majority of the local community? I mean, what do you do? Think about what do you do during your normal course of events. You have automobiles, you have cell phones, technological things that need repair and whatever, food, certainly not entertainment. I don't know when there was ever a movie theater on Mass Road. Nah. Okay? But the thing is, there are some things you can do. There's some directions you can give. Now, there are 3 ways to do all this. is the master plan. In this study, do not make it part of the master plan. I spent 7 years getting that thing signed in this town. It has to have a sense of reality to go into the master plan. This is not there yet. You've heard comments from the public. You're going to have to fine-tune it. Listen to your consultant, okay? And just tell them, we don't think it's real. Don't be afraid to tell them you don't think it's real. It's not what Pinardville wants. He's being paid to guide you, not lead you. There's a difference. Guide means provide you with information that you can evaluate, judge, and utilize. So that's a master plan. And that can be put into it, whatever you do here can be put into the master plan by the planning board. That's the only group that can do that. I suggest it should be a standalone, utilized to modify 2 other areas. That's the site plan regulations. Now, you can modify that with the planning board. There's a public hearings, but it's approved by the planning board as part of their design criteria and whatever that might be associated with things that go on in Pinardville. So that's one chapter that you could add to the design, to the site plan regulations, because that governs the use of any site. Then you have the zoning ordinance. Now that takes a town vote. Now that's going to be the tough one. How are you going to explain this to the voters? Not just the people who live in Pinardville, although they're the greatest affected, but how are you going to explain it well enough to the rest of the voters of this community to get a positive vote? I haven't heard one mention of that. Not one. Now, I personally have rewritten zoning ordinances. It's taken me years to get successful at it, and it took me years to get any of them approved. So this might be a gradual thing. You may not get what you want the first time around in terms of what might be approved by the voters. Don't give up on it. Pinardville is worth the effort, and I certainly applaud everybody on this committee for the time you spent having all these meetings, the planning sessions, and whatever. I know it's not easy. Okay, and you're all sitting there in judgment of what's going on in town. That's what you volunteered for. And I personally hate personal attacks for somebody that gives their time to their community. You'll never hear me do that. So, I wish you the best. I'm just saying that right now, and I've read all the documents, and Brian knows I have, and I agree with some of the topics in there, but I personally believe that the 67 pages, is it 67?
81.
81 now? Okay. Could be reduced to 24. Because there's some of it, you as a committee have to decide it's not worthwhile. That's all I got to say. I wish you luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Bill?
Do I get more than 3 minutes? The average is like 12.
First state your name.
Bill Wynn, 292 Mass Road, Goffstown, New Hampshire. Actually, I'm kind of glad all these speakers came up before me. I was anxious before, but you know what? I've heard so much around the gambit here that I got to wonder if Goffstown's in failure. I remember spending time on the zoning board with Mr. Martz. Jim Raymond was my favorite on the planning board. Had some experience with the master plan years back. Very difficult to come up with a master plan. And then when, I think it was you, Mr. Martin, said something about you got to have a master plan in order to have zoning. Boy, it sure sounds like the oxen carts before the ox, sitting here this evening, listening to all this. I'm very disappointed the code wasn't discussed tonight. I'm very disappointed I can't get that outcome. And then I have to think about, we only have, what, 3 days, Brian? 3 days to get that code looked at? Okay.
You'll have more than that.
Pardon?
There'll be more than 3 days.
It'll be more than 3 days. It kind of reminds me of Nancy Pelosi. Approve it. We'll read it later. I don't think it's going to come to that, but boy, it sure does jam things down. Now people have to come to another meeting. I think that's an adverse effect. Very disappointed in that. I look around at the people here at this table, and I have to wonder about the representation of Pinardville, Goffstown as a whole. I do see, I've done some homework. I do see some people sitting here at this table with some possible pecuniary interest. And maybe that's why they fight so hard to get this plan forward. When I first started out, I said Goffstown could be in failure. I have to say this confirms it. There's no reason in the world why our zoning board, our planning board, our economic development council over the years has not been able to get this town where it needs to be today. Unfortunately, it hasn't. So our selectmen suck up a grant through HUD, pass it down, create committees, and let's make a commitment. Let's build homes. Let's let the government take over our town. I call it the reconstruction of Pinardville. And tomorrow night at the high school, we're going to have the reconstruction of the village. That's been kept pretty quiet. My publication gets about 6,500 visitors a month. I heard about a letter that Mr. Martz wrote. 6,500 people didn't get a chance to see that because we didn't get it. It's unfortunate. What I'd like to say here is, I will be on the radio in the morning. I've asked to go on as guest host in the Gerard at Large program. My focus is going to be on the issues of the people on this board. I'm going to ask everyone on this board to make available within 48 hours on the website who they're affiliated with, what they've been doing, what they do for a living. I'm not necessarily asking them why they're here, but transparency needs to come forward. There's just, if we want this plan to go forward in Pinardville, we've got to have a fair representation. We do not have a fair representation based on my findings. I got a little bit more to do. One person is very involved who stands to make a boatload of money. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't write things on my publication because I can't write due to my disability. I film a lot. That's why I do it. I want to commend Mr. Heichel for submitting his plan that got turned down and not recommended in the last election cycle, I believe, 2 election cycles ago. That was a beginning to take a look at Pinardville. Nobody wanted any part of it. My findings were that people at that time knew about this coming forward. There was a grant, and that's why it wasn't recommended, in my opinion. I think Mr. Heichel got the swamp boat on that deal inside. So that's what I have to say this evening. I commend every one of you for doing a good job. I've asked people to write positive things. I came here tonight to find positive things in hopes I could do a positive thing and get it forward on the radio tomorrow. I'm having trouble coming up with that answer. I really am. So I'm going to leave with what I started. It's clear that Goffstown's in failure, and this ad hoc committee proved it tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Yaden? Well, first, is there anybody else from the public who hasn't spoken who wishes to speak?
I don't think I gave you my name.
Yes, you did.
Yep.
I did?
Yes.
Well, anyway,
How would I know to say Mr. Yaden?
I don't know.
Well, you did.
Probably I'm too notorious. But just for the rest of the people that are here in the audience, I am an architect. And I served on this town's planning board and also as chair for a number of years. And I'm well aware about what's going on. And if anybody here representing Pinardville has anything they would like to say to me, my phone is listed in the phone book. Thank you.
If there are no more comments,
I have to say something. I've lived in Pinardville. My name is Stan Beck. I lived in Pinardville since 1969. Seen a lot of changes. A lot of those changes came about without my input. A lot of it's good, some of it's bad. You know, what we heard tonight is a business, property. Whatever the future holds, by your actions, your words, you put them in a very bad position.
We've been in agreed for 5 years since they've been working on Mass Road for the past 5 years.
Yeah, but we've suffered through the reconstruction of Mass Road, but people are going to suffer if you're not careful with what you do and what you say. Because people move into the area and they want to find a great place to live, and Goffstown is a great place to live. But just be careful about that. The other thing is that you have to have a master plan. The last master plan that stuck in my mind was, when you drive down Mass Road, anything 200 feet from the center of the road is kind of like open for business development. And how you go about generating that business is kind of like what the town's responsibility is. Sometimes it'll be a car wash, sometimes it'll be a shopping center. But the main thing is that we have to have a master plan. The only thing I can think of is that you have to build it in layers. And if you're going to build a master plan, is transportation a main concern? Can we go beyond any other point without a master plan for transportation? I'm talking about roads and people using their cars to get around. So do it in layers so that you would have an overview, because anything you develop, you may not live long enough to see the final outcome. And I say that because it's going to take a while. But you've got to have a master plan so the next person sitting in your chair can have a point of reference. Okay? And the only thing I would like to say is, like master plan is, and then also when you have like a business coming in, if I came to you as a car wash, I'd like to see it presented, and then no decision would be made for at least 30 or 60 days because you want to have input. It should be in the bylaws. It just can't be show up with your engineers and all that and decide, because you're missing something from the master plan. How is it going to affect the community? So you've got to have a longer period of time for input when you get the final proposal in place. Okay. I kind of like kick around. The only thing when you're talking about this master plan is that there isn't very many options about developing alternative transportation through Pinardville. Mass Road is it, and it's very difficult to expand it. But if there was a miracle way of diverting traffic away, or making it such that people could loop through Pinardville and either go through the commercial section or just try to go through. You know, some businesses would not want to see that because they rely on the traffic that goes through every day. But like one of the things, I didn't go to the planned Pinardville meeting, but I was thinking Bartlett School has outgrown its needs. You know, its location. You know, and you got 35 acres sitting on Bartlett's corner, which is Daniel Plummer Road. So why wouldn't you build a school there and then sell the school and let businesses go in there, you know, or housing, whatever. So all I'm asking is that make a master plan, do it in layers, and then let's just work at it one layer at a time. Thank you.
Does anybody else from the public wish to speak? In that case, I'll close public comment and open it back up to the committee. Does anybody on the committee have anything to say? Going once? In that case, Brian, we need to have a meeting after we get your smart code on Monday.
So, I've discussed this with Brian Wright, and the date that we came up with that was available to both of us, and hopefully can be available to you as well, is the 13th of August.
What day of the week is that?
Tuesday?
It's a Tuesday. We've generally had our meetings on Tuesdays, and they've worked fairly well for most people.
Going to be 7 o'clock?
I'd like to propose it be 7, just to allow for any other people who can't make it at 6. I know we've had the past few at 6, for reasons of whatever. Some people feel that 6 is better, but I know that
A lot of committee members aren't showing up.
certain other people aren't showing up, so
yeah.
I'm not sure if the time is, the reason for that. And also, it kind of gives people a chance to eat their dinner before they come to a public meeting. So I'd like to propose the 13th at 7 be our meeting.
That's a question, Rosemary. I believe Mrs. Cody asked when the public gets to see the smart code. Do we have a definitive date as to when we as a committee and then the public will see this?
As soon as we receive it, we're going to get it probably the night of the 5th. That's Monday. And we'll be putting it up online, and it'll be available for people, anyone to look at, not just the committee. We'll be mailing it to you all, since we won't have a meeting right then to discuss it. We'll be mailing it to you and putting it up online for the public to view.
And that can be simultaneous to us getting it?
Right.
Does anybody have a problem with the 13th at 7 o'clock? Then I guess that's when we will meet again. Now, we're also meeting on the 20th?
We are also meeting on the 20th. So I'll have 2 meetings right in a row.
Okay.
The 20th will be to basically make a recommendation on this, but then will also be an opportunity to maybe start into discussing the smart code. I'm not sure how much we'll get into with both meetings, but on the 13th we'll at least hear a presentation about what the smart code is, orient you to it, and kind of field some initial questions of what it is, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay. And the 16th is the deadline for comments regarding the master plan.
I know we had put it out on a certain date. I think it may be the 17th or 18th. I can't recall, but
okay. All right. So
no. If it goes past that, I'm not too worried, because honestly, comments could still even be given at the planning board level, a month from then, too. So if someone comes into the planning board public hearing and wants to say something, there's a public hearing there, and they're going to be able to say that, and the planning board will consider that. So even if there's additional comments that come in after that, I mean, we'd still welcome your comments to be submitted.
okay. Yes, Brad?
Just curious, the 8:20 meeting, what is the, you don't have to outline the whole thing, but what's the agenda for that meeting? And in terms of how we're addressing a final draft, is there comments going to be inserted into a document that we got to review, or what's the plan for that
Yeah, is
meeting?
it going to be like the July 2nd meeting, or?
Well, any comments or concerns from committee members or from community members that, come in during this time, we're going to be considering and, making changes as best we can to the document, and then we'll be providing you with whatever changes are recommended and made, and then asking you for a recommendation vote, whether or not it's
Are those going to be,
the
those
support to go to the planning board.
comments going to be like a separate list of them or something that we can, we review beforehand, or will they be flagged into the plan itself, like we did ourselves, or what is your anticipation?
I mean, we're gonna be having the last day of the public comment all the way up until, so I don't know if I can get you beforehand it'll only be a few days before when that public comment period ends.
I don't know if it makes sense just to grab them all, put them into a page, and then we have it in hand when we're there or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll
I'm
try
trying
to
to get a feel for how to be prepared for the meeting, that's all.
I'll try to make it somehow succinctly understandable as to what changes may have been made, so that when we're in our meeting, you'll understand, this is what we did.
You're anticipating making some changes to the plan with them? Because of the timing, I don't know.
I have received at least some constructive criticism,
Okay.
To make some changes, so I do anticipate making some, yes.
Okay, that's, the point is to review those and settle on what we want to go ahead with. Okay.
Can I follow up on that? Are we going to have an example of what the zoning is now, currently, and what the recommendations are, right? So we'll have, because I don't know what the zoning is on Mass Road right now.
Well, I think we're talking about the plan.
Yeah, the 820 is for the plan.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I assume the smart code is on a different track.
Yeah, that'll be on a later track.
So the 13th is for...
The 13th is to introduce you to the zoning.
And the 20th.
But then we're going to overlap and go back
okay.
to the plan on the 20th.
All right. Gotcha.
But for the 13th, do we get a synopsis of what the zoning, the existing is, to side by side it to?
That's not really the way it's set up. I don't know how easy that would be to go through that and compare.
I can do it myself, and I'm sure all of us in the room can. It's just, it's easier if we have something where we can say, the Ice House District currently is this, or this is currently allowed, and this is what the key change is. I don't know.
Well, that would be good.
That would be
Well, a
very
map would
Yes,
show,
we
wouldn't
want
just
that.
the zoning map, the standard zoning map give you an indication? As far as printing out, you can't print out the zoning,
Yeah,
obviously you don't print out the zoning code, but
the zoning map itself.
the map itself will give you an indication
And
anyway.
with those definitions and the map.
I'm not going to be able to put like our current, because it's not going to be exactly the same setup. So that's going to be very difficult task to try to integrate both of those and compare everything to it, and I'm just not going to be able to do that.
Could I recommend that you have a few copies in your office, you could just have at the meeting, and as we're going through it, we might be able to come up with some of the comparisons ourselves.
Copies of the current zoning?
The current
ordinance?
zoning.
We have those available.
Yeah, maybe we bring them to the meeting, and then as we're looking at the smart one, we can look up things ourselves, and
I can do that.
maybe we'd be able to do it that way and hash it out
Just to clarify, though, the zoning aspect of this goes all the way into January.
Right.
So it's really a longer-term process.
We're not done next week or in 3 weeks or whatever.
But I agree with Cheryl, if we could have a copy of the zoning map that shows what the various zone codes are currently, then when we're going through the smart code, we can do some comparison and say, oh, this is currently zoned as residential commercial, and now we're saying, no, it's only going to be residential. So we could do some comparison that way.
What may be a good thing is for me to just provide each of you a copy of the zoning ordinance as it currently is written, so that you all can use while you're comparing the smart code to our current ordinances. I think that might be
Because it might go down to commercial parking spaces. It's already commercial. The recommendation is to go to 60% or whatever to 20% in parking, so then that might not work without knowing those details.
Okay, anything else from the committee? Motion to adjourn?
Do we,
Adjourn.
I'm sorry, do we need to just vote on having the meeting on Thursday, or is it, are we good? I'm sorry, on the 13th.
I think we've got a consensus that we'll be here on the 13th.
It was a
And
quickie,
is
John.
the 13th considered the second public hearing of the master plan meeting?
No.
No.
Okay.
There's no public hearing on the 13th,
So this is not
nor on the
part of the
20th.
public hearing for the master plan?
On the 13th?
Any of it? Any of this is not part of the public hearing?
the
for
Any of what?
For the master plan?
Any of what?
For the master plan. You had mentioned that this Planapalooza was part of the master plan. It would be amended to the master plan. So what I'm asking you in the process of a master plan is that you have to have 2 public hearings. Is this considered one of the public hearings, or is this not a public hearing?
Can I say this?
Yes.
This is a drafting group. We're
Right.
supposed to be actually writing something.
Good.
So we've had a lot of public comment. We're going to
Right.
continue to have a lot of public comment.
Right.
But it's not a public hearing and then we decide type of
Good.
thing.
That's all I wanted
The
to know.
fact is,
That's good.
it's
It's not a
very,
public hearing. I'm all
I think it's
set.
very confusing for everybody.
No, I don't think it is.
The difference between a
Very
public
confusing
hearing
for
and a
me.
public meeting.
No, I want to
We are,
know
this is a
whether
public
this is
meeting.
considered a public hearing.
No,
Okay, good. I'm
no,
fine.
public
I'm good.
meeting, not public
good.
hearing.
I'm good.
But we have an extra, but we're allowed to come though on August 13th, correct?
Correct.
Okay, are we allowed to speak or make comments?
No.
No.
Because
Is that
we
a public
will be
hearing?
going,
Is that a public hearing?
no,
A public meeting?
public meeting.
Okay, good.
There will be an opportunity for the public to speak to the code,
Good.
but it will not be on the 13th.
So we have not had one public hearing yet, correct?
We don't hold the public hearings.
Right, okay, good.
And what time is the meeting on the 13th? And
7 o'clock.
And the 20th, the 7 o'clock also?
We haven't determined that yet, but it will most likely be 7.
Thank you.
Can we determine that now?
Sure.
Make a motion, 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I think 7, I second that, yeah.
Brian, you were about to say something?
I'm good with that.
Poor Brian, just thinking, let me out of here.
Mr. Yaton?
We have a motion.
Madam Chair, when you have a meeting, does that mean that if I sit out here, that I cannot make comment to this group?
Unless we open it up for public comment, that is correct, sir. As a matter of fact, we are not in public comment right now, and I'm allowing you to speak.
God bless you, Rosemary.
Yes, we should be able to speak.
And I'll start it with you.
Point of order.
We do have a motion on the
Point of order,
floor
yeah.
to adjourn. Do we have a second?
No, we have a motion for 7 o'clock on the 20th, seconded by
Oh.
Cheryl. That needs a vote.
Do we really need a vote?
I don't
Okay.
know, we have a motion on the board. on the-
All those in favor of making the 20th of 7 o'clock?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good, motion passes. Do we
Now we
have a
can- now we
motion for
can
an
adjourn.
adjournment?
Adjourn, motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night and bless you all.